Hi everyone, welcome back. Hope you've been having fun going through this course. I've had probably the best time of my entire life leading you through it. And we're getting to a particular lesson that I'm super passionate about and that I get super jazzed about, and that is operating an online business. So we've talked a little bit about how we're looking at law differently. We've gone through a bunch of the different types of agreements that will pertain and apply to your business. And now we're in the part where we're talking about operating online. And there are three really important parts of operating online that we're going to go through in this lesson. The first part has to do with disclaimers that you include on your website. The second has to do with terms and conditions. And the third has to do with privacy policies. So we're just going to dig in and go for it. So part of why I'm so enthusiastic and stoked about sharing this is because I took my law firm online, which is something different than almost every other lawyer in the world is doing, and I did it because I love to travel. And you've heard me talk about travel throughout this entire course, but I realized the one thing when I wake up in the morning, what I want to do the most is to be in a random place, in a random culture, in a random country, eating random food, chatting to random people, and just experiencing life that way. And I realized that when I was based in a particular city or area, I wasn't accessing that, and my soul wasn't being fed in a satiable manner enough to keep me satisfied. So I'm like, boom, I'm going traveling. I also had lots of stories about travel, and I'll just interject here because we're talking about being online, and I always connect being online with travel. And it used to be this thing where like, oh, maybe Corey, he loves traveling and he'll do it in his early 20s and then he'll stop traveling. And like stopping to travel is the scariest thing that I've ever considered, or the strangest concept that's come to my mind. Instead, my relationship with travel has evolved to a point where I'm always thinking about how I'll be able to continue traveling. And I've also reverse engineered my business to operate online so that I can fulfill this lifelong goal of seeing as much of the world as possible and going to new and exciting places and learning new languages. So if you see me like extra stoked or extra enthusiastic when I share about operating online, it's because I equate online business and online commerce with traveling and being able to operate from anywhere, and that's pretty much the coolest thing around. Now that we're considering working online, or we're in this particular lesson, I just want you to think about the importance of communication. And if you run a business or you are providing services on a one-on-one basis, it's very, very easy for you to communicate with people who you are, what you stand for, what your expectations are in working with someone, because people they catch your vibe, they feel your energy, you can tell them, you have the opportunity to go through in great detail or in less detail with them one-on-one how you feel. What happens when you operate on the internet is you have a screen like this, and anybody in the world can reach out to you, and anybody in the world can purchase your services. And as a result, when we talk about communicating expectations, now instead of us doing that personally or ourselves, we need the information on our website to be very, very clearly placed and also clearly communicated so that anyone who's accessing this information from any part of the world can know very, very clearly. And I'm really excited. In this lesson, we're gonna have Kelly Track, who's a client of mine. She's just done unbelievable things with her business. And she talks about the importance of operating online and having very, very clear agreements so that if a question comes up or somebody wants a refund or had misaligned expectations, she can just take a screenshot and say, hey, you agreed to being on my website and purchasing my services. In doing so, this is what you agreed to. Screenshot, issue in question. If there's any questions, please contact me. But it's so clear that I did not, or I did make a particular representation, or I promised something, or I didn't promise something, that there can be no issue around it. And that's where I want all of you to get to. I want you to get to a point where you feel so empowered by your documents and the way that you're communicating with people that A, your clients are going to be super satisfied. B, you're treating your clients with respect and with love. Like, let's not forget about love. When you have heart-leading documents and you have a website and you're communicating your intentions in a thoughtful, considerate, and loving way, your community and your tribe will respond to that. But also knowing that you have the safety and the support of a document that can stand up and say, hey, I understand why you might be upset, but just remember, in purchasing my services or in accessing my website or in downloading my materials or in providing me with your personal information, this is what we agreed to. And if there's a misaligned expectations, I'm really sorry, but I was forthright with you in doing so. So let's get into it. I'm going to start talking about disclaimers, and I'm rolling my sleeves up because I'm stoked. This is what's up with disclaimers. Disclaimers are extremely important in the protection of your online business. And you may be saying, why? What happens is, if you operate a website or you have a blog or you have a podcast or you're putting out recipes, you are telling different people in the world or whoever's accessing your information that they're supposed to be doing certain things. So do this, or don't eat artichokes, or eat hearts of palm, or have peanut butter in your sleep. And actually, whoever did tell me that was right, because I can eat peanut butter at any moment of the day. But what's happening is people are listening to the advice that you're giving them. And there's a little bit of context and background that you need to do before you actually tell people what to do. And that is, tell them what your qualifications are. Or if you're selling them a good, tell them what the ingredients in the goods are or where the materials are coming from, so they can know where their level of expectations should be in operating with you. So I do disclaimers very often for holistic nutritionists and different people who work in health. And it is a very, very tightly regulated industry where people have to be so crystal clear about what they're doing, what they're not doing, and what their qualifications are. And my question is, why? So unfortunately, I can't hear you through the computer screen, but I really would have loved to know your answer. And I'll just share with you the reason why. The reason why there are lots of rules about the representations that you make and sharing your qualifications and being clear on what you're recommending is that the world and governments do not want people in a vulnerable position to be misled. So sometimes there's like this power imbalance between people where someone might have a really cool looking website and all this information, and someone might be in like a sad place and really wants to change their life and is willing to take extreme measures in order to do so. And basically the law says, okay, this is a relationship between two people, but there are certain boundaries that you have to put in there so that one person is not taking advantage of another person. And also, talking about respect and love, people should communicate openly and honestly about what it's like working together and what their qualifications are and what their qualifications are not. So when you have a disclaimer, and we can use the health industry as an example, you have an obligation to tell people, I'm a doctor, or I'm not a doctor, or I've done a nutritionist course, or I've not done a nutritionist course, or everything I learned from my own personal experience, and I don't understand anything about medicine, so anybody who listens to me or follows me needs to understand that. And just think about, just in a very basic relationship-oriented way, what it's like between two people when you say actually everything up front. And the disclaimer is like, look, I'm a lawyer. I'm not your lawyer because you haven't retained me to be a lawyer. And what I'm doing is providing information to you that I've found by working with hundreds of clients. Hundreds of clients have made the exact same mistakes when it comes to disclaimers online. So I'm sharing you the practical information about what should be in a disclaimer and the importance of it. But again, you're not paying me to be your lawyer, and I'm not giving you every piece of information under the sun about disclaimers. I'm just trying to give you a practical boost so that you can understand in the operation of your business online what you should include. So let that sit with you for a second. Have I been honest with you? Yes. Have I been loving with you? Yes. Have I set expectations for you? Yes. If you're taking this course and you're thinking, oh, well, now I know everything that I have to put exactly in my disclaimer, I told you that you're not going to get that. I told you that I'm going to be able to share with you some real practical tips about a disclaimer, and in doing so, it will help your business. And remember, 99% of the problems in the law can be avoided through open and honest communication. So I'm really happy to share with you openly and honestly, and I hope that that example is helpful for you to see what a disclaimer should have. So now the question, obviously, it's about you. This isn't about me. I sort of love when things are about me, but this isn't about me. It's about you and your business. So what should your disclaimer have? Your disclaimer should be a very open and honest reflection of who you are, what you're doing, why you're doing it, and what people can expect from working with you. And an example of a really important clause that's often included in disclaimers is no guarantee results. So a lot of the times people will say, oh, I purchased this service and I thought that it was going to change my life, but my life didn't change because I didn't actually make any of these changes and now I want my money back. And saying no guaranteed results or no guarantees basically says to someone, look, I'm so stoked that you are buying this service or buying this good or whatever else that you're doing, but just so you know, I'm not making any representations about a guarantee that this product or service or good will have in your life. And in doing that, someone's going to purchase something for you, and any feedback you get, you can listen to them with all of your heart and say, I totally hear you. But in the same line, I told you before you purchased it, I've made no guarantees of what will happen in your life by purchasing this. And as a result, you sleep in the bed that you make, or the expression goes something like that. So with a disclaimer, you want to be very, very clear again about who you are, what your qualifications are not, and what people can expect. Now, here's where it gets dangerous. Not having an appropriate disclaimer, in all seriousness, opens the door to liability and it exposes you to risk. Am I a fearmonger? Absolutely not. I'm not. Was that convincing? Okay, good. I really am not. What I want is you to build an amazing business that you love, and I want you to be supported, and I want you to be secure. What happens is you have a website, and on this website, anybody in the world can listen to what you're saying and take action based on what you say. But let's say someone takes an action based on what you say, and there's a catastrophic outcome. You have a podcast, or you have a recipe, or you have an instruction, or a guidance, or a tip. And someone goes and takes that tip or relies on what you're saying to them and let's say you've represented yourself. I'll just take that. Let's say you have not declared that you're not a professional of a certain caliber, or you do not have a certain certificate, and you've got a beautiful website with great photos of you helping people. Someone can go on that website and plainly assume, oh, wow, this person might be a doctor, so I'm going to take everything they say seriously, and I'm going to follow it to a T, when really you have no qualifications whatsoever. If that person takes certain actions and something bad happens to them, you can be liable. And just remember, this is accessible to however many billion people across the world, however they stumble upon your page or your website, you literally are having a relationship with the entire world. And that's why operating online in best practices is so important. Because you want to protect yourself, and you also want to communicate openly and honestly and share exactly who you are and what you're doing to all of these people. And it's like, if it seems overwhelming, it might be because there's actually billions of people who could access your website and rely on the things that you say. It's also just best practices to communicate openly and honestly. A disclaimer is important because it lets people know who you are, what services you're providing, what expectations people can have from those services that you're providing. And in doing that allows you a platform to just communicate and say, basically, I'm not responsible for whatever you're doing unless you want to be responsible. And you can also say that if you like, because remember, there's no good agreements and there's no bad agreements. There's just agreements that reflect how you're feeling. But it's really, really important to set that tone initially with people. The next important thing on your website, other than a disclaimer, another important aspect on your website, in addition to a disclaimer, are your terms and conditions. And your terms and conditions are basically the agreement you have with people for the services that you're providing. And it's glorified, but also slightly technical service agreement of someone who's on your website using your materials and purchasing your services. So there's two real important things that I want you to remember for terms and conditions, and these are as follows. One is, it has to do with copyright and the property that people are accessing on your website. So we know that copyright comes up immediately when you create something, but A, have you said that it's reserved by copyright? And B, are you letting people know, look, I'm so stoked you're on my website, and I'm so glad you're loving this information, but there actually are rules about how you can share this, and there are limitations to the way that you can take my information and use it for yourself. Some people care about this, some people don't care about this. I have clients who say, as long as my message is being shared in the world, I'm so happy. I have other clients who say, I worked my butt off to come up with this particular training manual, and if anyone is downloading it, they're not allowed to use it or share it with anyone else for any commercial purposes. And the terms of your conditions can set the tone for how people use your videos, how people use your photos, how people use the content that they use on your website. Really important. Secondly, in terms of a service agreement, and you can revisit the lessons that we've done on agreements and specifically service agreements, things as simple as a no refunds clause. Someone purchases a service through your website and they want a refund. If you don't have a no refund clause included on your terms and conditions, you will have to give them a refund. The way that I want you to think about the terms and conditions on your website are these are basically the rules of someone accessing your website, accessing the information on your website, accessing the content, and even purchasing services through your website. So terms and conditions are really, really important because if you don't have these rules, people can do whatever they want with the content. I mean, within reason, but they can do whatever they want with your content. They can use your images in any particular way. They can share the unique copyrighted content that you've created. They can believe that they have any rights to refunds or other aspects of the services. So think of terms and conditions of the rules of your website. And remember, there are billions of people out there who can access your website. Especially if you're operating an online business, it is foolish to not have rules of the game communicated. A couple of the different areas that you should turn your mind to is certainly copyright. If you have links to third parties on your website or links to other websites on your website saying that you're not responsible for anything that happens on those websites. It's like you have to think of your website as a digital store and a digital service, and people are coming in and using it. And what are the different things that can come up when they are visiting your online store? And because there's so many people and because there's so many things that can happen, I don't want you to feel overwhelmed or stressed, but I want you to feel empowered and be like, cool, this is my shop. Like wherever the internet is, I actually don't understand the internet whatsoever. But in using the internet, this is your little online shop. And the question is, what rules do people have about using it? And just some examples that would apply. One has to do with affiliates. So a lot of people are in affiliate marketing or affiliate representations. How can you communicate the rules of that relationships both with the affiliates and with people who are buying directly from your website? Do you have an obligation to share with them that you have an affiliate relationship and that you're recommending something that they're purchasing? In terms of no refunds, no guarantees, what are the different rules of the services that you're providing and the content that you're providing? If you've created certain information or property or photos, are people allowed to share it? Can they post it on their own social media, or do they need your permission to do so? So terms and conditions it's a robust area of law. It can also be quite simple, but the important thing is, again, I want it to reflect you, and I want it to be about what rules you have about visiting your website and incorporating that into the communication that you hold online. The last area of online business that I want to bring to your mind in this very simplified lesson, but also very important, has to do with privacy policies. And privacy policies, I don't know if you follow the news of what's been happening with Facebook or the introduction in Europe of the GDPR, which is basically an overhaul and new rules of how people have to behave when they're collecting information. Privacy policies, just think in a very basic way, you are collecting someone's information. And the law has to catch up to society because this obviously was never an issue before the internet, but now the internet is so predominant in our daily lives that they have to put up rules about websites collecting personal information because laws and societies have all these regulations about what you can do with someone's personal information, what you can't do, how you have to let them know, how that information is processed, if you're storing it, where are you keeping it. And the main areas of privacy that I want you to think about basically are what information are you collecting from people and letting them know that. Secondly would be, where do you keep this information? So is it all online? Is it through a server? Are there passwords? Do sometimes people provide pen and paper information that you need to keep locked up in a file cabinet. A really important part of privacy policies also is third parties. So if you have a website on Squarespace or Wix, but you have people doing e-commerce through Stripe, you have to let them know what Stripe's privacy policy is so that they can review that if they want to, and then decide if they're going to move forward with doing a purchase through you. And again, the big picture of all of the online operation aspects are communicating openly and honestly. I've said it a million times, but it's so relevant here because what's happening is people are accessing your website, they're purchasing your services, you are collecting their information. Just let them know, hey, what's up? I'm so stoked that you are going to be using our website, or thank you for joining on to our newsletter. Privacy policies really apply to newsletters or anytime you collect information from someone. And you have to say, can't wait to send you a newsletter every 2 weeks. Just so you know, this is how we keep your information. This is where we keep it. If you have any questions, you can reach us here. These are the third parties we may or may not work with in keeping that information. In addition to this, you have to think about spam and what it means to contact people without the proper permission, and that is illegal. You're not allowed to do that because society has set up rules saying if you're going to contact someone, they have to consent to it before, and there has to be a checkbox that they click and agree to, and they have to have the opportunity to unsubscribe. And even when you think about a small example like spam or unsolicited communication, it's just about respecting people's privacy and their rights and the collection of their information. In addition to this, for a privacy policy, you're going to want to let people know whether or not your website collects cookies. And I think in 2018, we never would have imagined the Cookie Monster would be this incorporeal website cache that stores information from your IP address, but the reality is that's what it is. And society is telling us, look, if you're going to use cookies and remember people's information and track the way they are operating on your website, you just need to let them know. Because if someone doesn't want that information kept and tracked, they have to have the choice to opt out of that. And that's what all of the disclaimer and the terms and conditions and the privacy policy is. Operating online is all about giving people a choice and saying, look, it's so easy to access everything that's out there. This is the way that I run my particular business. These are the representations I'll make through my disclaimer. This is what I promise or what I don't promise. In terms of the rules of my website, my terms and condition, if you want to access my materials, this is how you have to use it. If you want to purchase my services, these are the policies I have around that. And for privacy, I'm collecting your information. This is the way I'm going to collect it. And you let people choose whether or not they want to. And that's why the importance of authenticity and being open and being honest in the relationships that you're creating is so important. Because you want to upfront say to someone, look, I've got cookies on my website. I'm going to track through analytics how you behave while you're here. And that's that. I'm going to give you the opportunity to choose whether or not you're comfortable with that. If you're not comfortable with that, awesome. You're going to have a great time on all these other websites around the world, but you're not going to be on mine because that's what I'm doing. And it's not good and it's not bad. It's just how you want to operate your business. So for privacy policy, the main things I want you to remember and consider are what information you're collecting, how you're collecting it, are you sharing that with third parties? Are you including links to those third parties' privacy policies, which is really just the fair and right thing to do to let people know? Is there a contact information if someone disagrees or challenges or doesn't want their information kept? And basically, how transparent are you with the information that you collect from people? So when we think about online businesses and operating, like we're going to talk to Kelly Track, and Kelly's crushing it. And you'll hear from her that what she's amazing at is creating passive income and creating courses and building dream lives for her clients. But also what she did was at the beginning, get organized legally from the start. And the first things that I did with working with Kelly was building a privacy policy, building a disclaimer, because that foundation was in place at the beginning, she was able to take the foundation, communicate openly and honestly, and then share her offering with the world. And not only share her offering, but do so in a confident and secure way that she knows if there's an issue, I can just screenshot something from my disclaimer, something from my terms and conditions, which are the rules of my website, or something from my privacy policy, and let them know, like, look, when we agreed to work together, this is what we agreed with. So it's a really important business for anyone who's operating online to be aware of these issues. And again, embrace these issues. You don't need to write your own privacy policy. You don't need to write your own terms and conditions for your website. You're certainly welcome to. But the whole point of this and every part of the course is just turn your mind and realize, like, okay, if I'm going to be operating with someone who I don't know, who's visiting my website, am I being completely fair to them? Am I giving them the choice to operate through open and honest communication, or am I being deceitful, or am I not sharing things? And ultimately, operating online can lead to liability. And the liability can be if you make representations, or if you tell people something, or you don't let people know what your qualifications are or are not, or you promise particular results. That is when you're getting into hot water. And I don't want you in the hot water, I want you in the cold water. Like, the type of water I want you in is like beautiful lake water, river water, early morning, jumping in, feeling refreshed, and being in an amazing position to succeed. So this is the amount of fun that we have when we talk about online business a lot, because online business allows us to operate from anywhere, not be in the office, create passive income, all those super juicy and fun, amazing things. And the way that we do it is by setting the foundation correctly from the start. And this is a perfect opportunity for you to begin.